So, what exactly is clean code? Have a look at this example. Is this clean code? Probably not. We can probably all agree that this is not clean code. It's a lot of code, hard to read, a lot of deeply nested control structures. This doesn't look very clean. Now consider this example. Is this clean code? Well, it's just one line of code, and it looks like we're calling a function, create, which creates a user named Max with an age of 31, something like this. Well, let's have a look at the entire code. This is a Python example, and in case you don't know Python, I'm defining a function here, and in that function, the lambda keyword here actually is used to create more functions, which are then returned from that function. So take a pause now, pause the video, and try to understand this code now. What is this code doing? So, did you pause the video? Did you try to understand it? And did you understand it? What we actually have here is a function, the create function, which does not create users or anything like that. Instead, it's a function which creates other functions. So it's a factory function or a higher order function. And these other functions which are being created turn out to be validation functions. We pre-configure them with a certain value, for example 31, and then we get a function which we can call thereafter to compare another value against that created value. And we either check for that value being smaller or bigger, depending on whether we chose max or min as a parameter for creating our validation function. This is absolutely not clean code, because it was very confusing, and understanding what this code does will certainly take a couple of moments. And that always is a good sign for bad code, if you have to think about it a lot to understand what it does. Because there's one thing which clean code certainly is not. It's not code that just works. The example I showed you will work. But it's still not clean code, because clean code is not about whether code works or not. Instead, it's about whether code is easy to read and understand. Because it turns out that as a developer, we spend quite a lot of time reading code, understanding code. For example, because we have to go back to code we wrote in the past to fix a bug or add a feature, or because maybe we need to dive into some code written by a colleague or by some other developer. So we need to read a lot of code. And therefore reading code and understanding code should be easy, because if it's hard, we lose a lot of time and productivity. And ultimately, entire code bases can die because no one's able to fully understand the code. So for example, here's the same example from before, now slightly rewritten. To be precise, I basically only chose different names. And now automatically it becomes cleaner. It becomes easier to read and understand. It won't take you as long to understand what's going on here as it did before. And we could of course also refactor this in other ways. We could, for example, also consider creating a class with good names and with all the validation logic baked into the class. Something like this. And of course, just to make this clear right away, there will not be a single right way of writing clean code. Instead, this is one possible solution. Using a factory function with better names would have been another solution. And in this course, we're going to dive into many possible solutions and many different concepts and rules which might apply to your specific code and situations. So what is clean code? Ultimately, it's code which is readable and understandable, and therefore code which is readable and meaningful, which reduces the cognitive load you have to go through, so that you have less cognitive load and understanding is easy. Clean code should be concise and to the point therefore, and you, for example, want to avoid unintuitive names, complex nestings, or big code blocks. You, of course, typically want to follow common best practices and patterns, and also a bunch of concepts and rules which I'm going to teach throughout this course. Because ultimately, it should be fun to write and to maintain code. And with clean code, you ensure that maintaining can be fun because your code can be understood by others. So clean code is code which is easy to understand. Dirty code is not easy to understand. And as a developer, you should therefore treat your code like a good story, like an essay. You are an author. As a developer, you are the author of your code. And you want to write it such that it's fun and easy to read and understand your code. That should be your goal, and with this course, you'll be able to achieve it because I'm going to teach you a couple of techniques and rules that help you write cleaner code.